Do you wonder why our government is full of politicians rather than statesmen? Then stay tuned right now for the Kelli Ward Connection. She's bold. She's fresh. She's fearless. Here now, your host of the Kelli Ward Connection, Dr. Kelli Ward.
I got my high heels on, my boxing gloves. I can knock you out with a 1-2 punch. I'm perfume sweet and whiskey strong. I damn sure ain't no underdog. I might fall down, but I get back up. I shine bright when it going strong. You say I can't, well darling, watch me. You can't stop me 'cause I fight like a girl.
Oh yeah, welcome to the Kelli Ward Connection. And yes, I do fight like a girl. I am Dr. Kelli Ward, your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Arizona does need a new BFF, and I am ready to be the bold, fresh, fearless voice we need. Listen up, speak out, make a difference. Let's do this. Well, I will tell you that we have got an amazing show planned for you today. We're going to be talking to two world-renowned guests today. We've got Dr. Zudhi Jasser, the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He's from right here in Phoenix, and he has got a lot to say about our immigration policy, refugee issues, and how it's affecting us as a country and the risks that the current administration is putting on American citizens and on our American homeland. We're also going to be touching bases on what's happening in Syria and in the Middle East. So I think that that's of interest to many, many people out there. Foreign policy really is the name of the game today. Our second guest is former double agent. Now, that should spark your interest right there. A former double agent working for the United States, Naveed Jamali of the Foreign Policy Research Institute. We're going to be making the connection between immigration, Islamic terror, and Russia. So you definitely want to stay tuned in and call in. Now, Wes Alexander, our Millennial Moment star, is going to be joining me in studio today as well. I would not miss out on adding the Millennial Moment to the show. And you can follow Wes on Twitter at Young Dems for Trump, Young Dems #4 Trump, where I think we're going to be streaming live via Periscope. I'm streaming live at Kelli Ward AZ, Kelli with an I, because I care about the people, and Kelli with an I, AZ. Go check it out on Periscope. I think we're up on Facebook Live as well. At Facebook, Kelli Ward for Arizona, Kelli Ward 4 Arizona. You can see us live, watch the show in action. And, of course, you are the most important part of this show. It is you. I'll take your calls, and together we will make the connections that are needed to put this country back on the right track. So just to recap, this is the Dr. Kelli Ward Connection. I'm Dr. Kelli Ward. We're live on Independent Talk, KFNX 1100, every week at 3 p.m. So call in now. The number is 602-277-KFNX, 602-277-5369. Or you can even call in toll-free from anywhere all around the country, 866-536-1100. And, of course, you can always contact me on Twitter or Facebook at any time, not just from 3 to 4 on Wednesdays. Now, we do have a caller already on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and talk to George from Maricopa. Hi, George. Are you there?
Ford. Yes, I am.
Hey, thanks for calling in. I heard you have a suggestion for a guest for me.
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to talk when you're here in Maricopa at the Republican Club.
Thank you for coming.
And as much of a patriot as you are, thought I'd turn you on to another one.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, his name is Merlin Lloyd Miller.
Okay, what's he do?
He's at West Point. He served with people like Petraeus.
Wow.
He has 3 daughters who graduated West Point and are on active duty right now.
Oh, well, bless them all, and I thank that whole family for the service to their country. Now, does Mr. Miller live here in Arizona? Where's he live?
No, they live in Tennessee.
Tennessee? I love Tennessee.
But he's he also started a thing called the American Eagle Party. And if you want to keep running for Senate, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to help you in that endeavor.
Well, I'd love to find out more about that, George. Can you send me an email to Kelli Ward, Arizona, KelliWard, Arizona, all written out, at gmail.com with his information and yours, and then I'll get in touch with him and we'll see if we can get him on, because in the near future we're going to be talking about the political parties, the two major parties, versus the dysfunction that's happening in those parties, the problem with political elites, the problem with party politics. So it's interesting to talk about other parties that do exist. So
to make it a little easier, he wrote a book.
Okay.
And it's called Eagles Are Gathering.
Okay.
And it has his whole story in it. You can't get your hands on that. You got my business card from meeting.
From Maricopa. Okay, perfect. Well, and don't forget to email me in case I don't know which card is yours. So email me, but I'll look him up and I'll see if I can track him down and get him on the air. We've been pretty successful at getting guests. The two guys we have coming on today are both authors of great books, and so I have another author coming on, actually two more coming on in the next several weeks. So I'd love to get Mr. Miller on. I'm not sure what his rank is. I hate to call him Mr. I'm sure he has a rank.
I think he was a colonel when he retired.
All right.
Left the service. Anyway, you can find him at merlinmiller.com.
All right.
And the American Eagle Party.
I got it. I got it, George. I love it. I wrote it all down here in my notes. I am going to find out more about it, and hopefully we'll hear him on the air before you know it. So I'm going to wrap it up because I'm getting short here on my first segment, and I haven't even gotten to it yet. But it's been great talking to you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day.
You're always a lady.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. And that was George from Maricopa. I thank him for the call and for the informative information. And I will tell you that I wanted to touch bases a little bit about the presidential debate that happened on Monday. I'd love to know what you thought, so give me a call if you have a chance. According to the BBC, basically Trump, Clinton shut down the Internet. They broke the TV record for debates. They broke a previously held record. It was held from 36 years ago. Jimmy Carter versus Ronald Reagan in 1980 drew 80.6 million viewers. They got 84 million on U.S. televisions this time, which was amazing. And that was only on U.S. stations that covered it live. It didn't include anybody watching it online streamed. I watched it online myself. And they said most people stayed present through the whole 98-minute debate. And Trump was kind of interesting because he said he knew the debate was going to have one of the largest audience in history on television, but he just took a deep breath and pretended he was talking to his family. I'd love to hear from you to see if you think that that's how he performed. I think I'm wondering who you thought won. A lot of people told me they were going to watch. About 84% of the people who I asked on Twitter said they were going to watch. And a good friend of mine, showed some frustration with the debates. I'm not sure if you were frustrated or not. I think a lot of people watched it purely for entertainment. I think some people had already made up their minds. And mostly, I don't know how much it swayed people. I look forward to asking Wesley later on today how he thinks the millennials reacted to the debate and if that was something that really changed their mind or gave way to one or the other of the candidates. Now, one of my very good friends, Supervisor Hildy Angus from Mojave County, she thinks that the debates are a bunch of hooey, basically, and that we should just have the candidates come on for 90 minutes to tell us what their policies are, to tell us about themselves in a non-adversarial way. And I think that's kind of a good idea, too. So love to hear from you. We are gonna end this segment and wrap it down because we're getting ready for Dr. Zudhi Jasser to come on. In the final segment, I do want to talk about Lester Holt and his questions in the debate. I want to hear from you. 602-277-KFNX. That's 602-277-KFNX 5369. Stay tuned. We will be right back with Dr. Zudhi Jasser on the Kelli Ward Connection here on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX. fed up with politics as usual? Do you wonder why our government is full of politicians rather than statesmen? Listen to the Kelli Ward Connection every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Are you looking to connect with like-minded Arizonans? I'm Dr. Kelli Ward. The Kelli Ward Connection is your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Join the conversation anytime on Facebook at Kelli Ward for Arizona. That's Kelli with an I. And listen here Wednesdays at 3 p.m.
I'm settling. I got my high heels on, my boxing gloves. I can knock you out with a 1-2 punch. I'm perfume sweet and whiskey strong. I damn sure ain't no underdog. I might fall down, but I get back up. I shine bright as when the going stone. You say I can, well darling, watch me. You can't stop me 'cause I fight like a girl.
Welcome back to the Kelli Ward Connection. I am Dr. Kelli Ward, your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Listen up, speak out, make a difference. I am honored right now to welcome Dr. Zudhi Jasser to the show. Now, Dr. Jasser has quite an impressive biography. He is the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and you can find out more about it at aifdemocracy.org. He is a medical doctor specializing in internal medicine and nuclear cardiology. He's the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. And he is a commissioner on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Now, I could go on and on and on with his biography, but I'm sure you want to hear from Dr. Jasser himself. Dr. Jasser, it's an honor to welcome you to the Kelli Ward Connection.
Kelli, it's great to be with you, Dr. Ward. Congratulations on your program too. It's an honor to help you launch it. I appreciate it.
Well, I love having physicians who are politically minded. I love to engage in that political dialogue. And I'm sure one of the things that most of the people here that are listening want to know is how did you go from being a Navy doctor to an author and an expert on American Islamic relations?
Well, after 9/11, and my book talks about this, but after 9/11, we realized, the majority of us that are silent, that the current spokespeople for the Islamic community are mostly the Islamists, the apologists, and those unwilling to sort of realize that we have deep reform work that needs to be done. And slowly we organized a rally downtown in 2004, and that put us on the map nationally. And then I started to realize that our entire counterterrorism strategy and the establishment of the Homeland Security Agency was founded on an incorrect premise, which is a whack-a-mole program that basically looks at a symptom, which is violence or terrorism, and isn't looking at the root cause of the problem. And as a physician, as a naval officer, I've been trained to treat the disease, treat the root cause, and not just cover up symptoms. And I felt an obligation to, again, serve my country, and I think this is a Muslim problem that only has a Muslim solution. You can't kill all the jihadis. You can't win this militarily. And as we're seeing in this failed Obama administration, the strategy currently, and I just testified last week to Congress about the need to identify the enemy and the need for us to have a strategy that isn't blind of countering violent extremism, but rather countering violent Islamism. And until we name it, we can't employ the Muslims that would solve this, and we can't identify our foes either.
Right. So do you agree we are at war with radical Islam?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, as much as the political correct apologists on the left and elsewhere want to try to say, well, Islam is a religion of peace, certainly my Islam is, but I can tell you talk to Muslims in Egypt that went to the street in millions to fight the Muslim Brotherhood. You talk to Muslims like my family in Aleppo that's dodging bombs from the Iranian agents of Assad and Russia and others. Radical Islam has many sides to it, the Sunni and the Shia side.
Yes.
And they call them Islamiyin in Arabic. They call them radical theocrats in Arabic. So it's sort of bizarre. They look at us in America and our media and wonder, what are we on? Why aren't we calling them what they call themselves? Because that would then, when people say, where are the voices of moderate Muslims, they have no reason to speak up because they don't see anyone holding them accountable to their faith. So it's just sort of being dismissed and marginalized. And what's happening is we are letting the men in beards with robes who are misogynists and anti-American speak for the Muslim community. And if you want moderate Muslims, the business community, and others to speak up, then you have to start calling it what it is, and they will start to realize that if we're going to have a legacy that's an American, pro-liberty Muslim legacy, then we need to speak up and call it what it is.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Now, again, I am Dr. Kelli Ward, and this is the Dr. Kelli Ward Connection on KFNX 1100. Call in 602-277-KFNX. That's 602-277-5369. We are here today with Zudhi Jasser, MD, discussing American Islamic relations. Now, the U.S. border and border security are very important to me. During my campaign, one of my biggest slogans was mix the mortar to fix the border. And I think it's important to most Arizonans and most Americans across the country. And our politicians from both sides of the aisle really have failed us. They've failed to secure our border. They've failed to protect American citizens and American land. And so, Dr. Jasser, do you think that the open border has led to an infiltration in our country by extreme elements, by people who are coming here to do us harm?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the border, it's bizarre to me why the border discussion is always separate from national security. They talk about border and immigration and other things, and it's almost as if the immigration subject is different, and it's all the same issue. The reason we need to have a wall, the reason we need to remind the world that coming to America is a privilege, it's not a right, and ultimately those that came here not under the rule of law need to adapt to our laws and do it legally. And my parents waited and were here as refugees from Syria in 1967, and for a few months they didn't know if they were going to be able to stay, and finally, through congressional approval, they got political asylum. So, there are families that I think are the bedrock of America's immigrant narrative. That is important. But on the other hand, we are also a nation of laws, and we need to tighten and seal the border because there are many stories of Hezbollah trying to come through from the south. There are stories of radical Islamist groups that have threatened our security, either from the north, from Canada, or elsewhere. If you look in Europe, many of the Paris bombers that then committed an act 3 months later in Belgium were traveling back and forth from Syria. So, the immigration issue is extremely central to the national security conversation.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. Now, I do have a question because you mentioned Aleppo, and today Secretary of State John Kerry is talking about cutting off talks with Russia altogether because of a bombing of some relief supplies that were coming from Turkey, I believe, into Syria. And so that, our side, I guess, believes that Russia has bombed that. Russia says there were U.S. drones flying around and that maybe the U.S. did it. Do you think there's a connection between Russia and Islamic radicals that we should be focusing on? Is our government letting us down in both of those areas?
Well, I have extremely close ties to all of my families in Aleppo. They've been dodging bombs and living hand to mouth now for years. Since the revolution started, and the Obama administration legacy will go down in history as having sat on their hands while two genocides happened. Mm-hmm. One is over 500,000 Sunni Muslims that have died, and the genocide from the ISIS militants that have been killing Yazidis and Christians over the last 2 years. Now, the latter one was declared by Congress, but that even took Congress to tell the Obama administration and Kerry to declare that. Russia certainly is, Assad would have been gone a long time ago had it not been for Russia. There are many reports that Russia has even been allowing, through Chechnya and others, ISIS radicals to go back and forth. They are fueling the Assad fight along with Iran. Iran has 40,000 Hezbollah Republican Guard type fighters fighting with Assad, and the bottom line is that this continues to inflame and will not end. You can't get rid of ISIS. If Assad and Russia wanted to get rid of ISIS, it would have been gone a long time ago. But I can tell you, our families are telling us that the bombers flying across southwest Aleppo and through the city of 3-4 million people are bombing moderate neighborhoods. They're not bombing ISIS because, per the typical Arab tyrant playbook, The more the radical militants exist, the more they can demolish and decimate the more moderates in society. So America's lack of leadership has created a vacuum where two evils have grown. One is the Assad regime that's been there for 60 years with his father, and the other is militant Islam. And America will never be secure until both are gone. Now, yes, is there a third option? No, there isn't anymore. It's gone. The moderate rebels are non-existent.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we can't sacrifice our values. There can be, whether it involves dividing Syria up or whether it involves a UN protection force like existed in Bosnia and Herzegovina, ultimately to see this genocide end, we'll need a Russia that will be intimidated by American involvement, not basically telling us what to do. And Kerry's words today are useless.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I hate to tell you, but our time has come to an end. It goes by so fast, and I appreciate your time, your expertise on something that weighs so heavily on the minds of Americans. And I hope you'll be our guest again. It was great having you today. Folks, we got a lot more to come. We've got a lot more today, more connections to make. Come on, follow this. I do want to remind you that this show is not sponsored by any candidate or candidates committee. We are here to make connections. Bold, fresh, fearless. The Kelli Ward Connection. I'm Dr. Kelli Ward, your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Listen up, speak out, and make a difference. Remember, you can call in 602-277-KFNX. We just talked about American Islamic relations and how Russia fits in. Now, my next guest is just the person to take us a little deeper into that subject. Naveed Jamali of the Foreign Policy Research Institute joins me now from D.C. Mr. Jamali is a former double agent and the author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. So if that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know what would. So, Mr. Jamali, welcome to the show.
Hey, that was quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to that high bar you set.
Hey, it is great to talk to you in person. I'm going to dig right in. I want you to tell us a little bit about how you became a double agent for the United States.
Well, it is a crazy story, and as such, it's the crazier in some cases, the truer it is. And for me, it really all started. I'm first generation American, and I always wanted to serve in the military. Ended up not going that route out of college. Stayed kind of in academia, and then when September 11th happened, I really sort of felt this urge to do something meaningful and come back and join the military. And I found this wonderful program through the Navy to become an intelligence officer. Applied and unfortunately did not get in, and came up with this sort of harebrained idea that in my subsequent application, which I needed to pump up my resume, that if I sort of helped the FBI with the Russians, we had a connection through my parents' company. If I helped the FBI, perhaps I could translate that into a bullet on my resume, a sort of letter of recommendation, as you will. And that's exactly what I did. I almost looked at it as a summer internship. Ended up working for the FBI, where the Russians believed I was truly a spy they had recruited, but the whole time working for the FBI, and ended up spending almost 4 years, if you can believe that, working essentially undercover, with the Russians believing I was, a spy for them.
Wow. Well, now, I understand that your family had a bookstore, and that's how the whole connection started. Can you just go a tiny bit deeper into that, how the Russians approached you and your family, and how it kind of came to pass?
So, my parents ran a small defense contracting company in New York City, of all places, and as you said, they sold books. They were federal contractors that sold books to training facilities, FLETC, Naval Academy, any place that you buy, that you use books, any training facility. In many cases, they were suppliers. So one day, a man just walked into their office and said, "I want to buy some books," and showed my dad a business card that said something or other Soviet and United Nations, and took the card back. And the list of books was, pretty benign, academic books on nuclear disarmament, arms control. And my father thought the man was a diplomat at the UN. He said, "I'll buy these books." And when my dad asked where should I ship them, the man said, "No, I'll come back in a few weeks and pick them up." And with that, he was gone. And my father said, "Oh, this is great. I just had a major account just show up to my office here. This is wonderful. But I didn't have to do anything." Quickly forgot about the experience, went back to work until 15 minutes later, another knock on the door, and this time it was two other men that walked in and said, "We're counterintelligence with the FBI. The man who just approached you was a Soviet intelligence officer, and what did he want?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, he just wanted to buy some books. Would you like to see the list?" And they said yes. And essentially, that relationship between the Soviets and then the Russians and the FBI went on for, if you can believe it, almost 2 decades.
Right.
So my parents were feeding the FBI information as to what the Soviets and the Russians were interested in.
Well, it reminds me so much of the show, The Americans. I don't know if you've seen it or not on FX, but if you haven't seen it, if the listeners haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a little gruesome at times, maybe a lot gruesome at times, but it reminds you about how much privacy we had in the 80s. That, number one, is one of the things that stood out a lot to me. But also kind of the machinations that have been going on in the Cold War and the spy game for decade after decade after decade.
That's exactly right. I mean, I can tell you and your listeners that, we started in the late 80s. I grew up as a young boy around this, and between the Soviets to the Russians, Republican, Democratic president, didn't matter. The Russians it was the same people, same mission to collect military-grade intelligence. Really nothing has changed since the height of the Cold War.
Yeah. Well, and I was just talking to Dr. Zudhi Jasser, and we were talking about that just today, Secretary of State John Kerry threatened to cut off talks with Russia over Syria. And there was a recent bombing of a supply convoy traveling, I believe, from Turkey into Syria with relief supplies, and it was attacked. And the U.S. blames Russia. Russia deflects to the U.S. drones in the area. So how does your experience with the Russians apply today?
Well, it applies simply because I see the Russians, and I saw the Russians for decades now, as they viewed themselves when they were in New York. These were diplomats, these were military officers at the time as attaches at the United Nations. But when they came here, when they got on that Aeroflot flight and landed in New York's JFK, and they got off the plane, they viewed that they were behind enemy lines. They viewed themselves as being in enemy territory, and they viewed the United States as their main adversary, their main enemy. And they're patriots in their own right. And their duty was to find ways to stop and, minimize our threat to them. And then the thing has changed. So I don't see that where we are today, whether it's the expansion to the Ukraine, or whether it's, or Syria or anything else that Putin has on the table. This is not something that happened overnight. This has been pretty much a steady kind of movement in this direction. And it's worth noting that, look, the Russians, I'm an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserves now, but there's an old saying we have in the intelligence community, do you see something for which you don't have a word? And it's important for Americans to understand that the Russians look at us as their main competition. They view us as their enemy. That has really never changed. They don't necessarily view us as a nuclear threat in that world, but clearly their goals is to expand, and they view this as someone who's going to stop them from being able to do that, to realize that.
Well, I have got Wes Alexander. He is a millennial. He is a Democrat for Trump. He lives right here in the Phoenix area, and we do a millennial segment every show. And,
Sure.
And Wes has a question for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, so the question that I had was when, of course, the liberal media and the left are touting this relationship with Putin and Trump. Putin and Trump, best friends, right? That's what they're saying. And, of course, Trump has denied it, and it's obvious that they really don't have much communication with each other. But what do you think in a Trump presidency, knowing what you know about Russia and American relations, do you think that there is a future for America and Russia to be more amicable and working together for some sort of common interests?
And, Naveed, we have about a minute.
Okay, so Short answer is, look, we have to. We don't have a choice. We have to work together. So you can't cut and run as John Kerry's doing or President Obama's done. Just one thing I want to say about Trump and Putin, whether Trump has direct connections to Putin or not, it's worth knowing that the Russians, anything that mires us or kind of puts us into a little bit of turmoil is clearly beneficial to them. So that being said, is it that much of a stretch they'd want to, get involved in our domestic affairs? I would say no. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would love to be able to ask you about the piece you wrote in March in the Business Insider, but I don't know that we have time, about Donald Trump and if he's prepared to handle ISIS. Just quickly, do you think that over this last 6 months his ideas have evolved and that it might be something that he'll be able to do when he's the president?
I have very grave concerns about Donald Trump being president. I can't say that I'm a huge fan. I'm no fan of Hillary's, on the other hand. But
right.
That being said, look, we have some real issues in front of us. We have to overcome the decline that President Obama has sort of put us into the world stage. I mean, clearly the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese react to strength. We are clearly not negotiating from a position of strength.
Right.
So that's what we need to get back to, Kelly. I mean, we really need to be able to – it's not a moral thing, but these countries – they respect strength. And
yes.
Right now, they don't respect us.
You're exactly right. Well, again, this is the Kelli Ward Connection. I'm Dr. Kelli Ward. We're here on KFNX 1100 Independent Talk every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And I have had the privilege of having Mr. Naveed Jamali from the Foreign Policy Research Center as my guest this segment. Naveed, thank you so much for being here with our Maricopa County audience today. I look forward to staying in touch and not losing track of you, because you are a very valuable asset to know what's happening with the foreign policy in both the Middle East and with Russia, and how we are going to get back to that position of strength. Now, we are going to be back with our final segment in just a few minutes, so don't go away. We're going to hear more from Wes in the Millennial Moment, and we're going to talk a bit more about the presidential debate and the moderator in particular. I think we've had an excellent show so far, so stay connected, because connecting with you is my number one priority. Stay tuned. Be right back. Welcome back. We are here in the last segment of the Kelli Ward Connection today. Wow, it goes by so fast. I am Dr. Kelli Ward, your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Listen up, speak out, make a difference. All right, Wes. So what did you think about the last two segments? Any comments? What are millennials thinking when it comes to the ISIS-Russian connection?
Well, number one, both of your guests were absolutely phenomenal. What millennials think about, what we're worried about predominantly is these crazy attacks that have been consistently, they've been exacerbating. They've been continually coming forward and
making our world less safe.
Increasing. You look at, Minnesota, you look at New York, and we're just worried about, what are we going to be looking at in 10 years? What are we going to look when I'm older, when I'm an adult? Like, what's going to happen? Right.
I think if we don't have an extremely strong president in 2017, in January, the deterioration of our strength around the world, our power around the world, if Hillary is the president, it's just going to collapse anything. And America has to be strong for the world to be a better place. Well, I want to go back. I want to go back to the presidential debate for just a little bit. Now, one thing I saw again and again and again on social media, both during and after the debate, was the frustration with the moderator. Now, did you see the same thing?
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, I'd like to point out that NBC donated $5.6 million to the Democratic Party. You have companies like CNN.
No bias there.
There's absolutely CNN. It works for is owned by Time Warner. Time Warner is one of Hillary Clinton's top 10 donors in the super PACs. And you're looking at it's obvious media bias. It's out of control. And as a millennial and as someone who I personally didn't mind Bernie Sanders, one thing that I was really triggered by was
we'll
how
get a safe space for you if
Donald,
you need one. No.
Donald Trump did not talk about the DNC leaks. He came in and he said, Debbie Wasserman hindered Bernie. There's evidence of that. But he should have hit her harder with that.
Yes.
Because frankly, she undermined the Constitution. She did. It's election fraud, and that's exactly what happened. And Hillary Clinton should be disqualified for that very reason.
Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things to disqualify Hillary for.
And then the other thing is with cybersecurity. Of course, they gave her that plug because Hillary is very good at talking about the cybersecurity, with ISIS. Remember in the debate?
Yes, she gives them all of the information.
And so of course, Lester gave her a layup on that one. But Trump should have came in there and said, does cybersecurity, does that even make sense when you say Hillary Clinton and cybersecurity? Those two don't even go together.
Right, they don't go together at all. Now, I saw a scorecard, and poor old Lester got a D on the scorecard I saw. Now, of course, an F wasn't an option, so maybe it was a liberal group that was doing it because, we don't want anyone to fail, even Lester Holt. And I think a lot of my frustration came from the way he phrased the questions. Not even the questions, but the lead up to the question, almost incorporating Democrat talking points and so-called facts and political spin into his openings. Things like he said, there's been 6 straight years of job growth and incomes have increased at a record rate after years of stagnation. However, income inequality remains significant and nearly half of all Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, if that didn't come just from the Democrat playbook,
it's called a loaded question.
Oh, of course. And whenever you look at the questions, they don't include that part in the questions that the New York Times says were asked. So that part wasn't in there. But
apparently to Lester Holt, Hillary's private server, Hillary's deleted emails, Clinton Foundation, play-for-play, immigration, refugees, the bleach server, the smashed phone with the hammer, none of that was important.
That's right. No, instead it
just
was birthers
birtherism.
And tax returns. Birthers and tax returns. But you know what? What really burned me up about that was there's actually a job gap of over 14 million jobs, and labor force participation is way, way down. And even though he said it as though it was fact, people are not seeing it on the ground. So I think there was also a lot of frustration, too, because he would try to redirect Trump to the question at hand, but he didn't quite get to asking Hillary to defend her issues, anything, tax increases, anything. He would just allow her to continue to attack Trump and his wealth and, personal attacks. So I think we have a call. So, all right, we've got Bob in Phoenix. Hi, Bob.
Good afternoon, Kelly. I heard something today on the radio. If Trump wants to blow Hillary out of the water with all or most of the colored people in this country, all he has to do is refresh everybody's memory what happened in the mid-'90s in Rwanda with the Civil War when Bill and Hillary were in the White House. Yeah. When 900,000 people were killed in Rwanda by machete, by knife, by spear, by gun, and Bill and Hillary did nothing. They could have stopped it within a week for sure by sending over a bunch of Marines and a bunch of helicopters, and that would have ended that primitive civil war when colored people, were fighting against each other and burning and destroying in very primitive ways.
You are exactly right. And I'm sorry that the Democrat Party and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they have significantly weakened this country. They haven't shown strength when we need to show strength so that we can make the world a better place. Instead, they've gotten us into this predicament.
They don't care. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Colored people, white people, whatever. Hispanic.
Whatever gets them their vote.
Yes.
They don't care. They look at them as pawns.
And they also know that the American people have a short attention span. And whatever the next shiny object that comes out is going to distract from the truth of the past. And we have to learn from the past if we want a better future. And instead, unfortunately, right now it appears that we ignore the past, or we change history to better fit a narrative that the media or that the Democrats want to sell. And
Trump could destroy her with the story of Rwanda and I wish you all the best with your program.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to talk to you. I think you're exactly right. There are so many things that Trump could use against Hillary Clinton.
And what Hillary did in Haiti,
yes.
with the relief funds.
Yes.
Absolutely out of control.
If people haven't seen Clinton Cash and Hillary's America, please, you can see Clinton Cash on the Internet, I think for free. Hillary's America is coming out on DVD in October. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to see it. I think it's on October 12th. Be watching for it. But that exposes so much of what Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation has done around the world that's just dastardly. It's deplorable, actually.
It's deplorable.
It's hashtag deplorable. So, I think that we're going to be wrapping things up here soon. So we've only got 2 minutes left. Time flies. Another broadcast of the Kelli Ward Connection is under our belts. I'm Dr. Kelli Ward, and I hope you got something today from today's show. I thank Wes for being here. It's great to have you here. Go ahead. He's got one more thing.
I wanted to say one thing about the debates is Trump, I think, honestly, he did a great job. And this is why. Trump showed he disarmed Hillary, that whole thing with, that his temperament in the nukes. He disarmed that. He kind of let it roll over. To independents and Democrats, he wasn't screaming crooked Hillary.
Right.
He showed that he was very
presidential.
Very presidential.
Presidential, exactly. Well, I want to thank Josh on the board. Thank you, Josh. You did a great job. Our awesome guests, Dr. Zudhi Jasser and Mr. Naveed Jamali. And it is always great to have Wes here every week. And we've got some great shows planned over the next couple of weeks, so I hope that you are going to tune in. We've got a guest from the Center for Immigration Studies joining us to discuss the refugee problem in depth. Rick Shafton's going to be here to discuss political consultants, political elites, and party politics. Author Tom Rompel joins us from Tucson to discuss his book, Citizen Warrior, and I would recommend you check it out. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at one of your local bookstores. Try to read it before our October 12th show because it's a page-turner. I'll tell you that. Another hot topic is the marijuana debate. Is Arizona going to legalize marijuana during the next election? We are going to have a pro-205 and an anti-205 advocate joining us October 19th, so there's lots to look forward to. I look forward to being your BFF, your connection to bold, fresh, fearless political talk. Thank you for listening up. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for making a difference. Have a great night.